Another group with arguably even more influence is the cycling lobby. When the Transport Select Committee started looking into cycling safety before Christmas, the reaction from the cycling lobby was ferocious. The former Olympic champion Sir Chris Boardman was amongst those virtually accusing the committee of negligence for being so ill-informed about cycling. The storm of protest and abuse on Twitter left the MPs quite taken aback. This week, in a bid to restore their cycling credentials, the committee heard from Chris Boardman himself. Conservative Karen Lumley and Labour's Sarah Champion both sit on the Transport Committee, which is keenly aware of the need to balance the interests of all road users: cars, lorries, cyclists and pedestrians. So did Karen Lumley feel that the committee had been intimidated by the cycling lobby?
It certainly has been a challenge, and obviously people feel very passionately one way or another about cycling. It's been interesting. Just before Christmas we got a bit of a battering, especially certain members of the committee, but we're hardened politicians, that's our job, we've got to get on with it.
Sarah Champion, I understand the committee had read out to it, the members, all the tweets that have been saying how ill-informed the Transport Committee was.
That's correct. It's been a very interesting process. I've only been an MP for about 13 months now. We have never had a Twitter barrage like we got. But I actually think, I really don't want to encourage it too much, but I think it's democracy working. I mean, it's working quite a brutal way. But all of those people had their comments fed into the inquiry. They were genuinely heard and they will be responded to. And yes, it was slightly shocking when it was happening, and we're getting a couple of hundred tweets an hour coming through. But, if maybe we just need to move on. Maybe social media is the way that Parliament needs to be operating in the future.
Well, Karen Lumley, some people have commented that cyclists can be rather self-righteous. They always think that they're the healthy ones and they're in the right and they should have the right of way on roads, pavements and parks and much else besides. Is there something in that? And are they particularly well organised on social media?
Well, they obviously were very well organised, that was without doubt. I mean, at that time I wasn't on Twitter, I've only just joined, so unfortunately I didn't get too much of a barrage myself, but I did see, obviously, from the committee what happened. I think we need to treat everyone fairly. I think, there's people who walk around London and around our towns, there's people who drive. This is an inquiry on looking at how we can have safer cycling, how cyclists fit into our communities. And I certainly learned so much about what happens. I cycle in my own constituency, but I'm not sure I'll be wanting to cycle to work here in London because I'd find it very difficult. But I think it's important that we listen to everybody's views, and I think it's important that we come to an informed judgment, and I think that's what we'll do at the end of the inquiry.
Sarah Champion, do you cycle in London?
Oh, I'd be much too terrified. I've done it once and it really scared the life out of me. The thing that we need to be looking at, though, the title was cycling safety, but I think we also need to be looking at how we operate in our cities, how we move about our cities. And what's been interesting with the inquiry is we have tried to broaden that out. In the UK, only 2% of trips are made by bikes, whereas if you look in Germany, it goes up to 14%, and in the Netherlands, it's almost a third, because they've very actively made an investment into their infrastructure to encourage people to cycle. Our cities at the moment, I can understand why cyclists are angry. It's become very adversarial between drivers and cyclists because they are literally running the gauntlet each time they drive in or cycle into work, and something really needs to be done about the congestion that we're experiencing.
When you look at the figures, we've had some extraordinary figures this week saying that even just 10% more trips by bike would save the NHS £250 million a year because of the health benefits. When you look at the figures like that, isn't it extraordinary that we're not doing more to encourage safer cycling?
The problem that we've got at the moment is the austerity and the cuts that we're getting from the government are harsh, and it means that things that aren't as essential are getting cut. But I think we need to look at the broader picture, and I think we need to look long term. So, for example, if we did invest more in cycling proficiency, but also in cycle lanes and maybe re-navigating our cities, then that is going to save long term a big amount. The health benefits are great, but there's also the environmental benefits, there's also the economic benefit. Cities and towns which have gone to no motorised transport are seeing an increase in economic growth.
Karen Lumley, not all cyclists are quite as safe as they might be, although often it is the lorries that cause the problem. But some cyclists do jump red lights and they ride on the pavement. Would you like to see stricter enforcement of rules against cyclists who don't obey the highway code?
I'd like to see stricter rules of anybody who doesn't obey the highway code, cyclists, motorists, lorry drivers, whoever they may be. Nobody's above the law. we've seen pictures that I know of David Cameron through a red light. We've probably seen pictures of Boris Johnson through red lights and other political figures. But I'd like to see everybody treated fairly and in the same way.
And Sarah Champion, are you optimistic that perhaps due to your report, and then if a government takes it seriously, we might see safer cycling?
I really hope so. I mean, something's got to change. These deaths are shocking and they could have been preventable. I've been very impressed since I've been on the Transport Select Committee that what we say does actually get listened to, and it does genuinely sort of change the government's opinion. It's a cross-party group, and I think we do try and work collaboratively, and we do, as Karen said, try and take the broader view. And so, yes, I really, really hope that our recommendations are taken on board.
Sarah Champion and Karen Lumley, who, like your presenter, are too frightened to cycle in London. Perhaps their report will come up with a way to make cycling safer, but I'm not holding my breath.